Welcome to Forgotten Chronicles, where we uncover the lost stories of history. Today we're exploring one of the most astonishing moments of the Third Crusade, a marriage proposal that could have ended the war. The Third Crusade, a war of faith, bloodshed, and legendary heroes. But hidden within these epic battles was a shocking moment of diplomacy. A proposal, not of war, but of peace. A marriage between a Christian princess and a Muslim prince. It's a forgotten chapter of the Crusades, one that might have changed history forever. In 1187, Jerusalem fell to the forces of Saladin, the formidable Sultan of Egypt. The loss stunned Europe, prompting Pope Gregory VIII to call for the Third Crusade. Among those who answered the call were two of the most powerful kings in Christendom, King Richard I of England, the Lionheart, and King Philip II of France. The Holy Roman Emperor, Frederick Barbarossa, also set out to reclaim the Holy Land. But fate had other plans. He drowned while crossing a river in Turkey, devastating his army. Richard's journey to the Holy Land wasn't easy. He faced delays in Sicily and Cyprus, but when he finally arrived, he became the leader of the Crusaders. Yet within days of arriving at Acre, Richard had sent an envoy to Saladin requesting a meeting. We have his precise words, courtesy of Saladin's confidant and eventual biographer, Al-Adil.
It is the custom of kings when they happen to be near one another to send each other mutual presents and gifts. Now I have in my possession a gift worthy the Sultan's acceptance, and I ask permission to send it to him.
Saladin rejected this first request for a meeting with the following words.
Kings meet only after the conclusion of an accord, for it is unthinkable for them to wage war once they know one another and have broken bread together.
After Richard took Acre, negotiations began. During one such meeting, Saladin's men displayed a relic of immense value, the True Cross, captured at the Battle of Hattin. The Crusaders fell to their knees in reverence, but despite these talks, the negotiations collapsed, leading to a brutal outcome. Richard ordered the execution of 2,700 Muslim prisoners, a move that enraged Saladin. Following this incident, Richard led his troops out of Acre and headed south along the coast, while Saladin took a parallel route further inland. There were several clashes between the armies, but none were decisive. The Sultan realized that he could not prevent the Crusaders from regaining control of the Palestinian coast, much less destroy their army. His goal was simply to contain them and block their route to Jerusalem at any cost, as the loss of that city would be a devastating blow to the Muslims. After further successful battles by the Crusaders, particularly in the Arsuf coastal plain north of Jaffa, Richard sent Saladin the following message.
Men of ours and of yours have died. The country is in ruins and events have entirely escaped anyone's control. Do you not believe that it is enough? As far as we are concerned, there are only three subjects of discord: Jerusalem, the True Cross, and territory. As for Jerusalem, it is our place of worship, and we will never agree to renounce it, even if we have to fight to the last man. As for territory, all we want is the land west of Jordan be ceded to us. As for the cross, for you, it is merely a piece of wood, whereas for us, its value is inestimable. Let the Sultan give it to us, and let us put an end to its exhausting struggle.
Saladin consulted with his chief collaborators before dictating his response.
The city is as holy to us as it is to you. It is even more important to us because it is where our prophet made his miraculous nocturnal journey, and it is there that our community will be reunited on Judgment Day. It is therefore out of the question for us to abandon it. The Muslims would never accept it. As for the territory, this land has always been ours, and your occupation is only transitory. You were able to settle in it because of the weakness of the Muslims who inhabited it at the time. But as long as there is war, we will not allow you to enjoy your possessions. As for the cross, it is a great trump in our hands, and we will surrender it only in return for some important concession on the behalf of Islam.
Richard and Saladin never met face to face. But their generals, particularly Saladin's brother, Al-Adil, known to the Crusaders as Saladin, acted as a go-between for important messages and negotiations between the two sides. Richard was no stranger to diplomacy and knew that to end the war, he would need more than just military might. Richard himself frequently met with Al-Adil and eventually developed a good relationship with him, referring to him as my friend and brother. Richard and Al-Adil became quite friendly, and their meetings were, on the surface at least, perhaps more friendly than the meetings Richard had with his actual friends. Food and cultural exchanges were frequent. Gifts were traded, horses, swords, and other treasures. European sources, such as King Richard's Travels, written in Latin around 1200, even suggest that Richard went so far as to knight one of Al-Adil's sons. One day, Richard instructed the boy who accompanied Al-Adil to the negotiations to kneel.
I commend you to my knighthood.
It is said that the boy laughed when he heard this. This boy is Al-Kamil, who later became the Sultan of the Ayyubid dynasty. On one occasion, Richard sent Saladin's brother a most curious and unexpected proposition. Baha al-Din recounts the astonishing offer.
Al-Adil sent for me to inform me of the results of the latest negotiations. According to the proposed agreement, Al-Adil would marry the sister of the King of England. She had previously been married to the ruler of Sicily, who had since passed away. Therefore, the English king brought his sister to the east and proposed that Al-Adil marry her. The couple would reside in Jerusalem, and the king would grant his sister control over the lands from Acre to Ascalon. She would become the Queen of the Coast, while the Sultan would take the title King of the Coast. The cross would be entrusted to them jointly, and prisoners would be released on both sides. Once peace was concluded, the King of England would return to his country beyond the seas.
Now, this might seem unbelievable, but there are credible sources that confirm this extraordinary proposal. Richard, renowned for his bold and often unconventional tactics, suggested that if the marriage were arranged, it could bring an end to the conflict over Jerusalem. However, there's a twist to this story. Al-Adil advised Baha al-Din to do everything he could to persuade Saladin to accept the proposition, and the chronicler vowed to make the attempt.
Thus, I presented myself before the Sultan and repeated what I had heard. He immediately pointed out the obstacle, but he didn't believe that the King of England himself would ever accept such an arrangement. He thought it was nothing more than a joke or a trick. 3 times I asked him to confirm his approval, and each time he did. I then returned to Al-Adil to inform him of the Sultan's agreement. He quickly sent a message to the enemy camp with his response. However, when it reached the English, they informed him that his sister had returned home in a terrible rage. Upon hearing about the proposal, she swore she would never marry a Muslim.
One must ask, why did Richard propose this marriage? Was it merely a diversion? A test of Al-Adil's loyalty to his brother? Richard, after all, had little reason to trust in fraternal bonds, knowing firsthand how fragile they could be. Perhaps he hoped Al-Adil would seize the opportunity to gain power, straining his relationship with Saladin. Or maybe Richard wanted to make Saladin view his own brother as a threat. Either way, he was sowing discord, an outcome that could only serve his advantage. But Saladin saw through the ruse. Richard had likely expected the Sultan to reject the deal outright, causing embarrassment for Al-Adil. Instead, Saladin called his bluff, forcing the English king to reveal his double game. According to Humphrey de Terran, a baron in the Kingdom of Jerusalem, Richard and Al-Adil met to discuss the matter further, whilst he interpreted for the pair with his fluent knowledge of Arabic.
The day King Richard and Al-Adil met, I, Humphrey de Terran, was positioned between them, tasked with translating their words. It was an odd sight, given the war that raged between them, yet they spoke with surprising ease, as if old friends reunited. Horses, falconry, the art of war, they found common ground in their shared passions and even in their ironic sense of humor. The conversation drifted from battle tactics to hunting, with Richard particularly intrigued by Al-Adil's use of trained cheetahs. But soon, the discussion turned to a more delicate matter: marriage. Al-Adil remarked,
I was desolate to hear that your lovely sister is unwilling to be my wife.
Richard replied.
All is not lost, but she has concerns about marrying outside her faith. Perhaps there's a way to resolve this. Would you consider becoming a Christian?
Al-Adil nearly choked on his drink but recovered quickly. With a smile, he countered.
Perhaps the lady would consider becoming a Muslim.
Richard sighed theatrically, as if discussing a minor inconvenience rather than an alliance that could change the course of history.
Alas, there are further complications. Our priests object, so I must seek the Pope's approval. That could take 3 months. If he consents and my sister agrees, then well and good.
Al-Adil asked, clearly enjoying the game.
And if he refuses?
Richard said smoothly.
Then we can still make it happen. My sister, being a widow, requires papal consent. But my niece, the daughter of my brother, and the Duchess of Brittany, does not. She is young, but of noble birth. I could offer her instead.
Al-Adil said, looking amused.
I see. Then I will pass your message on to my brother.
After the conversation, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Richard had just effortlessly spun a web of diplomatic maneuvering, inventing clerical objections on the spot, twisting church law to his advantage, all without breaking a sweat. And yet, neither he nor Al-Adil seemed particularly concerned. They were too engrossed in their verbal sparring. To them, this was sport, a game of words and wit played at the highest level, and I, caught between them, could do nothing but marvel at their skill.
Was Richard the Lionheart ever serious about his marriage proposal? Or was it just a strategic ploy? Could he really have believed that marrying Saladin's brother to his own sister would end the war? What we do know is that Richard was a master strategist, both in battle and diplomacy. For months he worked to win over Al-Adil, calling him my brother and feeding his ambitions in an attempt to drive a wedge between him and Saladin. Many Muslim chroniclers dismissed the marriage proposal as a ruse, just another move in Richard's diplomatic chess game. But Saladin was no fool. He had spent years balancing warfare with diplomacy and quickly saw through Richard's maneuver. Instead of rejecting the proposal outright, he did something unexpected. He accepted. This put Richard in a difficult position. Now forced to follow through, he began to stall. First, he claimed he needed the Pope's approval, a process that could take months. Then, when that excuse wore thin, he pivoted, offering his niece instead. But she was in Europe, introducing yet another delay. These were hardly the actions of a man with a genuine plan. In the end, the marriage never happened. The war continued. Richard even requested a personal meeting with Saladin, but the Sultan remained firm, replying,
Kings meet only after an accord is reached. We do not speak the same language and would require a translator we both trust. Let this man act as our messenger. Once we understand each other, we will meet, and friendship will prevail.
Eventually, a peace treaty was signed. Richard returned to Europe and Saladin was able to retain control of Jerusalem, whilst the Crusader states continued their decline. But the marriage proposal remains one of the most curious episodes of the Third Crusade. Interestingly, there is another theory that Al-Adil may have secretly collaborated with Richard, potentially plotting against his own brother, Saladin. It's a controversial claim, but one that adds a new layer to this already complex political chess game. According to certain Middle Eastern sources, including some unpublished accounts by Arab historians, there is a perspective that Al-Adil was actively attempting to seize the kingdom from Saladin. This, they argue, may have been a key reason why Saladin chose to make a peace treaty with Richard. As the celebrated hero of the Battle of Hattin, Saladin would have had little reason to negotiate peace unless he was contending with a serious internal threat from Al-Adil. This theory gains further credibility when we consider that, following Saladin's death, Al-Adil eventually took power from Saladin's sons and assumed control of the Ayyubid Empire. It prompts us to ask, was this always part of his plan? It's a moment that shows us that the Crusades were not only a clash of swords, but also a battle of minds, of strategies, and sometimes of unexpected alliances. What do you think? Was Richard ever serious about the marriage, or was it always a political ploy? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Forgotten Chronicles.